Hello everyone, my name is Furkan from Inner Space Covent Garden in London. So welcome to our Relax More Stress Less session. So we are going to start with a very short relaxation exercise and then I'll talk you through what we are going to talk about in this session. So make sure you are sitting comfortable. You can close your eyes or keep them open, up to you. Gently just bring your attention to your breath. And follow your breath as slowly as you can as the air goes in and out. There will be thoughts from the day, from the past, future. It's absolutely normal, but keep your attention on your breath and feel how soothing it is. And powerful at the same time. And relax the muscles on your face. Let your jaw drop a little bit. Relax your shoulders, your back. Keep your body as still as you can. And just feel the lightness that the body has when you keep it still, when you keep your mind focused on different parts of the body. Now your legs, your knees, imagine the body, the space that your body takes up. And feel the lightness, the space. And gently bring your attention back to where you are. And see if there is any change in your mind, if you were able to create some peace, some relaxation, just by bringing your attention to different parts of your body. Keeps a lot of thoughts away from your mind, and it gives you a lot of energy in time. Okay, so today's session we will talk about brief definition of if stress is necessary or not, explanation, sorry. And then we'll look at maybe just a little bit of what damages it does to us. And then we'll look at the symptoms of stress and also looking at what happens to us when we are stressed, the symptoms. And then where it starts, the definition we can give it to it so that we can use it for our own benefit. Because when we look outside, stress is all around us. So we need to do something with it in our minds so that we can use it actually for our own benefit. And then, of course, we'll look at some tips and tools, some strategies that you can use in your practical life. Yeah, that's it really. And then if we have time, maybe we'll do a short visualization exercise. Again, it helps a lot with the stressful thoughts that we might have. So firstly, is stress necessary? Because there are thoughts, ideas out there that says, you know, stress is good and etc. I mean, stress is necessary when it's not constant. It will help us to, let's say, take precautions. You have an exam, and if you have a little bit of stress, you'll pay attention to prep beforehand. So that's that. And also, let's say there's a dangerous situation. Let's think about the virus, for example, and you might want to take those precautions. Let's say wearing a mask, or watching the news, you know, briefly to see what you need to do and precautions and etc. But what happens with stress is when it becomes chronic, the accumulation of that stress, it stays in your body and it affects your mind, your health. So we don't want that chronic stress. That's a bit like, you know, watching the news all the time and getting stressed about the whole situation. And then, you know, you can't really do much with it. It doesn't bring benefit to you or others. So that's the negative effects. And also it affects your immune system, because most of your immune system, the hormones that will help you are created in your gut, and stress will destroy that area, the bacteria. Stress will affect your decision making, because your brain is kind of locked, you know, it's not clear. There's almost like a cloud in front of you, so that affects your decision making and many more things. So we don't need to really go deep into that. We all have that experience in our lives. But the first important step is to understanding your symptoms. What happens to you? What do you do when you're stressed? How do you think? How do you act? So that those are really, really important. It's a bit like, let's say you have some digestive issues, and then you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, maybe you're allergic to gluten. So in that case, having symptoms is quite helpful, because there will be lots of people who will have no symptoms, and then by the time they find out that they are, let's say, you know, in the situation gluten, they're sensitive to gluten, there will be damage done. So symptoms are good, but then next step is I need to go back, trace it back, and then find, why are these symptoms created? What is my trigger? And in this case, it's gluten. You know, you would say, every time I eat bread, you know, this is what's happening. So it's easy to find out in that way. So I need to look at my triggers. We will talk about how we can find our triggers later on in some strategies. So the first one is finding your symptoms, and secondly, looking at your triggers. What are causing these symptoms? And then thirdly, of course, you need to choose a response. What am I going to do with this information? And again, in the gluten situation, you would say, oh, I got to stop eating this. So in terms of, you know, so if you have these symptoms, you can't suppress a symptom. It's an energy. It needs to move. It needs to be done something to it. So you can't suppress it, because it will come out from somewhere else. And in stress situation, if you keep bottling up your stress, it will come out as maybe a health issue, something like that. So we can't suppress it. And how do we suppress stress? For example, let's say you have a stressful situation at work, you come home and you say, you know, maybe the thing you need to do is maybe, you know, have a look at the situation. Why is this stressing me out? What do I need to do? But because it's too much, maybe you would end up watching, I don't know, 5 episodes of something on Netflix. So that's a bit of a suppressing, or eating a big hot chocolate or something like that, a chocolate cake. So that could be an example to suppressing. The other thing we do is we express it in the situation without really looking at the root cause. You know, what is my trigger? Why am I stressed like this, fearful, worried? And that would come out because I didn't look at it, I didn't reflect on it. It might come out as anger, it might come out as, you know, blaming, or maybe I can't say anything. I would just, you know, just not defend myself if I need to, or express myself and just keep quiet. That's also kind of silent expression. But what we need to do with this energy, because it's there, it needs to be done something to it. We need to transfer it. And in this situation, it is stress. How am I going to transfer it, transform it? And that's with redefining, giving a new definition to the situation. And to be able to redefine it, of course, I need to look at this stress. Where does it start? Is it out there in the situation, or is it somewhere else? So there are questions, but we can look at them at the end. But I will continue. There might be an answer to your question in the session, so bear with me. In terms of where it starts with the way I look at the situation. It starts in my thoughts, in my perception. Let's say I look at the situation, I feel I'm not good enough, I don't have confidence enough in the situation. Or I might say, I don't have time is not on my side. Or I might say, this is, you know, too uncomfortable. But again, these are my own perceptions, me thinking that I am not good enough, for example. I don't have the confidence. Again, that's a perception. And what happens with the situation is when these kind of stressful thoughts pop in, usually they will either go round and round and round without giving me any solution, because I'm not really, you know, my mind is not clear. It's all kind of jumbled up. So that could be one. My thoughts will go over and over like a broken record, and I feel even more stressed. Or I will have like all these stressors, the tasks and things I have to do, and it will come in my head all in one go. And then I say, oh gosh, this is too much. So that could be the way I look at it, my perception. And then of course it's a cycle, isn't it? You start thinking like that, you respond in that stressful manner, and then you feel horrible, and then, you know, it comes back again, the cycle. So how am I going to break this cycle? The first thing is, of course, I need to remind myself I can change this perception. I can do something here. I have the skill, ability to do this. And just look at your life really in the past when there were situations you overcame. So, you know, I've done it before. Why not again? Just take this up. So I'm talking about my thoughts. My thoughts are created in a way that's giving me the stress. Again, so I need to look at that. I need to redefine my stress. And then I need two gatekeepers in here in my mind. One gatekeeper will give me the right information about the situation, and the other gatekeeper will maybe let one thought at a time rather than all the tasks coming in my head. So we are talking about having that control over my mind. And then, and in terms of this, this one of the gatekeepers is that the new definition that we will give to stress. So if I can remember this definition, then that's like the security guard in my mind that will tell me what it is. So the definition is, stress is a messenger, and in this case in the form of discomfort, worry, whatever. And this messenger is telling me that the way I'm looking at the situation is not helping me. I need to do something with it, because if I could see the right definition, I would understand that I need to either change something or learn something or maybe heal something. Again, let's have a look at the gluten situation, and then I'll give out another explanation example. Let's say every time you eat bread, you have stomach pain. So you start realizing that, oh, it's gluten. Maybe you have a test, you have celiac, whatever. So you need to say, okay, I need to change my diet. So changing the maybe thought pattern or action or whatever in stress. So first thing I need to change. But then if you had so much gluten, maybe there's damage, and changing your diet will not be enough. So you need to heal it, heal your gut, whatever. And again, that's not enough. You need to learn about the new diet, what has gluten and whatnot. So when you look at the situation like this, when you say, okay, this situation is there, it's gonna help me to reach my potential, and that's why it feels uncomfortable, because I need to change something, learn something, and etc. And then when you start thinking about it, your mind becomes curious rather than focusing on what's in front of you. You start thinking, oh, I wonder, why am I stressed about this? What can I do? What can I learn? And when your mind becomes curious, it starts to think about solutions. Maybe I can do this, I can say this, maybe I need to change my job, maybe, or I need to change the way I look at myself. Maybe I'm putting myself down in this work, and then people are throwing things at me, and then I'm not saying no, and etc. etc. So maybe I need to change my attitude in that way. But until I start thinking about it in this way, until I become curious, it will kind of bother me. So that's that. So so that was one of the gatekeepers' new definition of stress. And then I'm becoming curious, and then I am saying, I can do something. It's a bit like when you start looking at the situation in this way, it's almost like you look at your fear in the face, and then it almost kind of loses its power. It almost diminishes. And that brings us to the definition of relaxation, because it's good to know what you want to become, or how it feels what you want to become, so that the effort you put in it, it feels, when you have your aim, your path is clearer, and it's almost like a carrot, it pulls you. So definition of relaxation is this kind of mind control. Whatever the situation is, I say something to my mind, and my mind listens to me, and then my body also listens. Let's say I have a job interview, and I prepped everything. I've done my best, all the questions I can think of, and etc. I've done my best. But my mind keeps kicking in with these thoughts. It says, oh my God, what if this goes wrong and that goes wrong? So the relaxation, the definition we have for relaxation is, at that moment, I can say to myself, I've done my best. I'm not going down that route of what if. So that control is relaxation, because I can only control what's going on in my head. What's my response? I can't control anything outside. I can't guess what the interviewers will ask me. I can only prep and do my best. So that's that. Yeah. And then also in terms of your body listening to you, you won't have butterflies in your stomach or sweating and, palpitations and stuff. You will be in control. So that is the definition of relaxation. And that gives you freedom. And that feels really good. So who wouldn't want to feel like that? But then, how do I do this? To talk to your mind in this way, to have such power. Where am I going to get this power? Because it's lovely to talk about things like this, but then when it comes to doing it, we all know it's not easy. It can be And it takes time. So that's the thing. It is practice. It takes practice. But definitely there's light at the end of the tunnel. And with every little victory I gain along the way, it gives me energy. And that feels better than any TED talk you would listen, any webinar. When you do it yourself, when you feel that energy, it's really good. Even something very small. So where are we going to get the power? So let's have a look at those things. So we'll talk about some strategies, and then towards the end we'll talk about some, again, some tools that you can use. So first strategy is, like I said at the beginning, looking at your triggers. So the first thing we need to do is taking a stress audit, meaning what makes me, fall over the edge. What makes me, what ticks off my, buttons? What pushes my buttons? What makes me stressed? So I need to find those things. Maybe it could be like, I have some tasks and I say, okay, I'll do it in 2 hours. But maybe that's not realistic. Maybe things like that I don't give myself enough time. That could be a stressor. So time management. It could be that I don't say no to, like, the task that I can't do at that moment, or I don't ask for clarification when somebody says, oh, this is what needs to be done. I need to ask for clarification, how much and when it needs to be finished, etc. So many stress triggers there might be. So you need to find your way, find yours. Maybe look at it over a week, over a month, however, until you find those ones. Or maybe you can look at different times in a month or in a week, looking at different situations that stress you out. But it's always good to write them. So make some kind of documentation so you can see them actually, because writing, seeing, it clarifies things always in a better way than just thinking about it. So I need to, observe and catch myself when I'm doing this. So that means, as soon as I find myself getting stressed, just, step back, as if you're watching someone else, your friend, and you would say, come on, you don't need to stress out, it's okay, something like that. Just a bit like that, you step back and you just watch what's going in your mind, the thoughts, without getting into stories. Again, that takes practice, but that's the practice that needs to be done. Stop and just once in a while, what am I saying? Just pull yourself back. You can do it in the situation, or you can just stop once in a while during the day and say, oh, in the last hour or a couple of hours, what made me stressed? What was happening there? And trying to understand why it stressed you out. So taking a stress out audit is a big one. Let's say you planned your day and then suddenly your colleagues start to give you more work, and then you start feeling overwhelmed. So that's the trigger, that task being thrown at you is a kind of trigger. And then so that's what we do. And then the next one is you look at what solution, what am I going to do? This is my stressor, my trigger, and then what do I need to do? Maybe in that situation, maybe you need to make a list of the things that are given to you. Have a look how long it will take. Maybe ask for clarification when you need to finish it. So it could be anything really that you need to do. So finding a solution, definitely. So that's one, taking a stress audit. And second is understanding where your fear is coming from, because fear is the biggest stressor. And when we look at fear, fear is almost like a bully. Let's say it's when you're coming out of your comfort zone, it kicks in, because fear wants us to be safe. That was our saving mechanism in the past, but now I want to grow, I want to change, I want to learn, I want to become stronger, but it's not helping me now, that fear. But to understand that it comes when I'm about to come out of my comfort zone, when I'm about to grow. So that's a big relief that actually, when you have fear, it means you are growing. That's a good thing to remember. And the quicker I do what is giving me that fear, the quicker I will come out of this comfort zone and this fear, and that the fear will disappear. And you know, we all know that when you act on your fears, it disappears. You realize that actually it was just paper tiger. So that's that. So when you do this, when you act on it because you thought about the solution, what you need to do, you can, while you're doing that, you can use another tool which is called mindset, creating a mindset. So let's say the stressful situation is something to do with your low self-esteem, which is a big stressor. So you say, excuse me, this is how I want to act in that situation. You know, I want to speak in this way, hold myself in this way, so I'm not kind of pushed around because I don't really have that self-esteem. So you can visualize this. You can think about it, how you want to act and think and feel in your meditation, let's say, or a time that you give to yourself, reflection time. You think about it, what you want to say, how you want to feel. So the mindset creating is you think about it and you feel it. So what you're doing is you're not really thinking, but how would it feel? How would I speak? How would I act? How would I walk in that situation? So you're kind of rehearsing. Think, feel, and be, creating a mindset. And as you realize, these are the things that we are all doing before the stress comes. So I can't expect myself to be cool and calm if I don't prep beforehand. And this mindset, this visualization, professional athletes do this. They visualize their race again and again with different alternatives, what might come up, and etc. etc. It's almost like you're writing it in your DNA. When the situation comes, you can act in that way. So that's the solution. And again, reflection. This is a kind of meditation. The meditation we do is, you know, teaching your mind to think in the right way that will benefit you. So that's the visualization here. So that's another strategy. And the third strategy is called eye of the storm. Again, when we look around, we know stress will come. We all know, we know, but still it's not, there will be no stress. When I overcome this, there won't be another one. We all know it will come. But the thing to remember, eye of the storm, meaning you go back to a safe space. So the first eye of the storm, I want to go back in the stressful situation. But again, I need to prep beforehand. So the first one is creating some anchor thoughts, which are like mantras. And this is used in dangerous sports. They, let's say you go rafting, the trainer, the guide, he will ask you to repeat some sentences before you go in the water. So if the boat topples over, you say this. I mean, the thought they have is knee to nose, meaning you hold your knees towards your nose so you don't damage your limbs and injure yourself too much. And then if you repeat these words, these anchor thoughts again and again before the stress comes, when you're in stress, what happens is our brain kind of locks, doesn't it? We can't think straight. But if there are thoughts that you repeat to yourself again and again, they will come. They will come much easily. And in this stress situation, we said storms will come, So I want to go back to the eye of the storm. And the first meaning of being in the eye of the storm is these mantra-like anchor thoughts. So one of them could be, life will never give you something you cannot deal with. It's amazing to remember in a situation. Even if you might not feel it in the situation, just remembering that, that's a huge victory. And next time, maybe you will feel it. And the more you do these kind of things, the more the feeling will also come. You will have more trust, in your own ability. So that's one of the things. Life will never give me more than I can chew. And the other thing that we can remember is anchor thoughts is everything happens for me, not to me. Again, meaning there is not a plan out there that's kind of like a conspiracy theory. Everything is working for me as long as I'm curious and trying to solve the puzzle. And what do I need to do here? So that's the eye of the storm, going into that quiet space. And another eye of the storm is this is in the situation, but again, I prepare beforehand as much as I can kind of guess the stressful situation. And usually we know the common stresses in our lives. So that that thought is, let's say I look at the situation and I don't say, oh, it's them or it's the task. I look at myself and I say, what do I need to practice here? So that practice, holding on to that practice, which I will explain, is the eye of the storm. So it could be like we talked about I talked about self-esteem. Just saying to yourself, I can do this no matter what they do. So that could be my eye of the storm. That self-esteem, it could be patience, it could be kindness, assertiveness, whatever you want to practice that you think that will solve the situation, meaning that won't make you stressful in that situation, and also help you and also the other people if they are in the situation. So maybe you're stressing yourself out because you don't have patience for something. So you say, okay, no matter what, I'm going to keep my cool and I'll be patient in this situation. And my experience is when I concentrate on this strength, let's say patience is a strength, what usually happens, the more I practice it, the more the situation either changes completely and disappears out of my life, or it doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't make me impatient. So that's my experience. So another strategy, so we had taking a stress audit, understanding where your fear is coming from. And then thirdly, going into that eye of the storm with anchor thoughts and choosing a strength, a quality that you want to practice rather than focusing on the stressor. And the last one is reducing your exposure to stress. So we are doing all these things to make stress work for us, and then teaching our minds not to get, overburdened with stressful thoughts, but thinking in a positive way, in a transformative, empowering way. But in the meantime, we also need to look after ourselves and reduce the exposure. And in life, what is the biggest stressor in our lives? It's relationships, isn't it? So what am I going to do in my relationships to reduce the exposure to stress? And that one is, firstly, I need to stop controlling. And that could mean judging, for example, is a controlling kind of thought, or trying to, of course, change others' responses. Let's say somebody's not talking to you, maybe you made a mistake, but you apologize and they're still not talking to you. Can I let go of that and say, I've done my best, rather than getting agitated and stressed about it? So that could be one. Or I go into a room and people are a bit moody and, whatever. can I say, oh gosh, this moody bunch, or can I say, let me do something here, let me change the atmosphere and not get bothered by it. So stop controlling, one. Second one is stop interfering. So if there are situations that my advice or interference not expected, maybe stay back from it. So that will also reduce a lot of stress. And also consuming. Again, this could be, I mean, I said relationships, but you know, this world, we are all in relationship with everything around us. It could be watching news, you know, all the time and consuming that energy. And it will make me not very useful to those situations as well if I keep, you know, consuming that kind of negative energy. But keeping it, I mean, I'm not saying I ignore situations and people's needs, but I need to stay strong, and then I can be helpful to them rather than get lost in it. So stop controlling, consuming, and interfering as much as you can whenever you're not something that's gonna cause trouble, like, you know, ignoring someone's needs. That wouldn't be nice. So in terms of tools, let's think about some quick tools where you can do, let's say, in a stressful situation. One of the biggest ones is using breathing techniques. And the one I want to talk about today is something called box breathing. Very efficient for stress release, even if you don't feel the effect immediately. It switches off your sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight and flight response. And box breathing is you inhale at 5 counts, hold for 5 counts, exhale for 5 counts, and hold for 5 counts. That's like a box. And you do this a few times, and then you will change the response in your body has shifted. So that's that. Another thing is, if there's a stressful situation, just breaking that cycle of thinking about it, and just give your mind something different. And in this case, do something that will give you joy. Let's say you had a stressful meeting or whatever. If you can leave it, great. If you can't, maybe at the end, maybe listen to a piece of music you like, or make a cup of tea, or talk to somebody, call someone and talk about something else. Of course, not the situation. So something that will break that cycle of stress in your mind. Do something that will give you joy. Maybe just go out in your garden, or, you know, just walk around to break that energy. And the next one, we talked about this, but if you have things to do and a lot of responsibilities, just as the things come to your mind, have a piece of paper, have a little notebook with you, just write things down. I know it sounds, I mean, so what, but it's really, really efficient to just write things down, one word, whatever. And then later on, you can always make the list, you know, tidier, prioritize things. But as things come, just write it down, because your brain can hold on to 3 to 5 things maximum. We are not designed for multitasking. So when we try and keep them in our minds, the fear of, gosh, am I going to forget it? Which one first? And blah blah. It takes a lot of energy, puts a lot of pressure on our minds. So why do that? So write it down as it comes to your mind. And another thing is, we talked about, you know, using a strength like patience and kindness and, you know, self-esteem, meaning, you know, having that positive feelings for yourself. Another thing to do is keeping a balance of tasks and these positive qualities. It really helps with stress. If there's a task, rather than just focusing on the task, hold something in your mind. How am I going to do this? With some peace, joy, kindness, lightness, whatever. That really helps you deal with the stress of the task. And one more is if you are finding it, and a lot of people do that, if you're finding it difficult to let yourself relax, schedule a time, make an appointment for yourself. Do something just for yourself. And if you find yourself, let's say, okay, this Saturday morning, I'm not going to do anything else but just do this thing I like. And then what happens usually is we end up not doing it. We get caught up in something as we start to clean the cupboard or something. If that happens to you, maybe tell someone or even arrange it with someone, maybe do something together, keeping your social distance. And another thing is mindfulness, and I'm sure you've heard of it. Doing something mindfully, meaning your mind is just full of that thing what you're doing. There's nothing else. Can you make your mind enjoy something very simple, like a cup of tea? Again, I'm teaching my mind to do what I want, to just enjoy, just be present. And again, when we do things like this, my mind becomes stronger. And in stressful situations, I can respond the way I want. I am not a victim. I am response able. I am responsible. And that's another anchor thought for you. I am response able. I am responsible. And the last thing I'll mention is, again, I talked about in creating a mindset that the first section is about visualization, thinking. How am I going to feel, act, be, and then creating that feeling and then putting it into action. And you can do visualization before you go to bed. You can visualize something peaceful, something that will clear out your thoughts. Let's say like clouds moving. And we have loads of guided meditations on our website, on YouTube, so have a look at those as well. Or you can just do the exercise we did at the beginning. You can do it longer, just relaxing the muscles, letting go of the weight of the body. That's that. So yeah, that's it really. Loads of things to do, but just choose one thing at a time and see how it goes, and look at those steps, finding your triggers, finding a solution, all those steps we talked about. The new definition of stress, it's a messenger. And the strategies we had, taking a stress audit, understanding your fear, going into the eye of the storm, and reducing your exposure. So all of these things, you can do this for yourself, and it will benefit you, everyone else. When you change the energy in your mind, the energy all around you will change, and that will help everybody, definitely. We have 2 minutes. I'll just have a look. Yeah. So the questions are about when the stress is outside our control, how do you deal with it? The whole session really, we talked about things that are outside our control. Everything is outside. I cannot control. It's the only thing I can control is my response. And that's why I said, finding maybe your own strength in that situation that you want to use. And we talked about patience, assertiveness, whatever you think in that situation that will help you to become stronger. If you can focus on that rather than what is stressing you, then you feel in power. You're not under suppression. But the mind, it speaks like that. So I really need to teach myself to feel that. It takes time, definitely, but it definitely works. I guarantee you. Even if you practice even if you practice mindfulness, just breathing seriously, it really, really helps. But don't believe anything I say. Try it yourself. Yeah, so all the best. Good luck.